Heroes. For they had known swagger without season, possessors of a fine and pirate fancy. For they had known hemlock, inscrutable rue in a black coat, always imbecile in January. For they had known foxfire, a horoscope of want and makeshift honing. For they had feared wets and snags and Sundays. For loneliness belonged to them, the agile realm of mouths, for they were stranger bait, had known the subtle vagaries, grape the teasing grain of razors, twilight's copper denier to a gram. For theirs the clouded hemispheres, the peril that contains all honey. For they had known ransoms, the reckless waltzing gene debriefed, known kidnap and the mutiny, intervention's sorry plank walk, their B-side instrumentals spun to fugue. They wrote long letters from the country, watchers of a revenant meanwhile in 12-step kitchens, venial flea pit introspections, theirs the vacancy and vertigo. They had been known to spit their golden motes from bridges, sit a sniper's vigil, chew wasps and thistles, like it. An insomniac pedigree theirs, melancholy insurrections of the sleepless. For they had known days of insult and of gimmick, the killing of an inner child in empty rooms, walked steel rails till their feet bled. For they had written oaths to split the weather into woe, interference, inference, anything smitten or eked. Blank nights in a bulking rage, long nights without stimuli or stylus, swinging a fist like a tilly lamp from that dark street to this, a pocket full of pens, of rhymer's rye. For they had heard the needle speak its wormwood to the small hours, the empties gathering the wind into a tinker's jinx roused their lubbered tongues. Bawdiness and sloth were theirs, a competence of drowned kittens, ex-girlfriends pigeon-toed to misery, testing the weight of their good intentions. For they could not kiss their pictures into life on pain of torture. For they were children tugging an eager sleeve, rasped by a granular desire and tightened up. Time's closing talk, the telescope contracted, febrile sprint the acid length of memory. For theirs were blotto whispers, the barman's rotten eyes extinguished and slick. For theirs was the tinny libido bleating its phantom moe to the mildew. For they had been bruised and kind and unsubdued, the purses of the world had sharpened their coins against them. For they had known the year's prayer burnt and memorized, sifted in the grate. Never the jiffy text, but the long hypochondriac's outro, the endless strophing monologue, and why not? Why not? Heroes, with their epitaphs inked on the knuckles of skinheads, who will be buried upright in the presbytery swear-box of their fathers. We will come after, twitching our delicatescent skin. We have known nothing, nothing at all. Hard, our maelstrom is the tight arse soliloquy of sleep. When we wake, prized from plague and adolescent panic, we return our wounds to the drawer. No more itinerant fiasco. Assessors of a mutant risk will soap the tongue of all their gentle names. Again and again they kill him. Even now there are places where thought might shrink. A mind worked out and thwart with waltzy boozing, hot with speed, still wearing all its frenzy on its sleeve. To breathe this bitter vigilance undone, abused, becalm, the gilded anchors slack, to melt, exult, to rid ourselves of all those token torments, there are places. We burn his letters in the sink, hold them by the dog ears of their disregard. He was so young and feckless in that state of being smitten. Even now the sigh grows smashed to say the lag of thunder of his name. You have to wonder. Suit of clothes, coarsened into barely man. Johnson. Had he recourse to ball his fist to fossil in the pockets of his loss? He mouths our idling maps to fire. Ireland, word full of wasps, of paucity and nausea. He looks over his shoulder, a convict crossing himself in the yard, and I think not. I think they do not grieve, cannot, have never dragged themselves down streets concentric with offence and fought another cruelly cresting thought. They are no ghosts, striding in the violence of their migraines, keying cars. Years of hopeless gluttony. An autumn has arrived in dejection and arrears, pyracantha hacking cough with flight and threat in each averted eye. Ilex, cornus, calicalpa, we are here, touching up the horny edges of our need. There's a voice, drawls the collodion strophes of his death. Wooden boy, notches in his bedpost body cut, once and always are continuous entire. A crow is morning's stooge, cracked along its chorus wakes me, pledging feathers to the costume of my guilt, and poetry paints its swooning mottos everywhere it is no good. Flowers without language this loss, precious ores, eyes puckered with drink, more bleeding than is good for beauty, the genial and fake, the frankly murderous. There are places, some steward of a soft embrace enfold me. You have to wonder, not expression but escape. Wearing the bronze rosettes of brazen remedy, does he know what it means, Johnson, to spoof his mutilations in a waning room, wearing our variant rose in the crook of his arm, on the lips against grace to sharpen the starving body into sleep? The clock as an enemy, wrapped with strategy. They are mostly gone, who stammered their escape in council eerie squats and singing. Sweet lagan run weary till the end of my song, till all our lustres numb, till daybreak's craven conjuries, till kingdoms come and old folks trade their chitties in for loose-leaf tea, till sailors step out of their shanties, till I meet my zealous perishable neighbour in the street and do not spit, till I am no longer spat at, till all my gammon covenants run blood, till my own country knows me, till I am not her inmate or her exile, till the end of time. Sweet lagan runs swiftly, till our dead in their shining lethargy are lifted up, till the television voices number gypsy boys among the cold. Even now, as autumn arrives with old campaigns begun afresh, we are finding ways to kill this thought. I'd made a book his bed, the mattress and the mire I flipped end over end, the ciphers of a metered time and laid on lamb's wool narrowly. I run my finger round the rim of love, it sings its whimming posy till it shatters. Johnson says no. There will be no lying down, no one to break amends like bread. Home will not be fuchsia, nor a stream striven clear. When I look at our maps, I will see my grandfather's hand. When I hold my grandfather's hand, I will see blue lines ploughed into boundaries, will see life's suffering impaled upon a hangnail. Home will be arbitrary nightmare, the whining of a child bride kept in a closet, will be telescopes trained on an exit wound, garrote, cavort, galley bondage, gangrene greed of sick natures, the hair shirt and the ship wreck. The counterfeiting light refines whatever it touches, and by refines a kind of scraping off. And still I hear that voice, those voices, and I have been eating these arsenic vowels so long my tongue turns tragedy in two. Lyric has a writhing sweetness to it. Flags in their fascist semaphore. He said, a flag is mostly air, Biddy. How a halo slips, how a mouth is fouled. And I know, but I love the grave that grew you, boys. Though all her walls have ears inclined to eavesdrop times. Though August is a punitive crescendo, though our church had blessed the blue shirts, warned the polished turd of tyranny, and despite the doss's kips, the own goal in a Celtic shirt, whose native language is noise, despite the bark stripped from the trees, the necromancy of nostalgia, zombie militias rising from the nearest lime pit, haunting an English dream, although she is a B-movie, although she is a spectacle of queer bash and revenge porn, although she is misogyny, and enfant's trembling rhetoric of lust, I loved you, and love makes me mediocre with longing. You have to wonder, has longing ever possessed this Johnson like a terror, brain sticky with the latent prints of an old pain rising, missing a friend, a lover, a father, a daughter, whose voice made mourning, those lost and those returned, presumed and absolutely, a hurting fact there is no gospel for in any language. When he wipes his arse on our peace, he kills them again and again, those whose deaths run hot, and those whose mirror is the serpent's mouth in trying to forget has always been, and there are places hanging in the aspic of our injuries. The pig thief, miscreant and mutable, whose name as Shadow Valentine I trace across my tongue like Parma violet charm against their heresy, there is a stain with. There will be dynasties of upturned faces blued unto the incidental day, the young. May their griefs be held in the palm of a hand, palmed like marbles rolled away, all infamy's attrition shrugged, and we will care for them like silence cares, let light and space, and dig ourselves in with a gentle spade. Autumn fever. The mouth becomes a prairie, and the dog has a look on his face like Al Pacino, who knows it was you and it breaks his heart. Unnatural practices, candle wax, omens and sonnets, these things the night contains. Love is the salt sown among your symmetries. Everything is beautiful and nothing grows. The houses and their Gothic hunkering, plates and their modest proposals of bacon and eggs, fevers Fahrenheit Threnody keeps screwing everything up. Elopement and pretense, the tender years in which fools and their wallets are parted, trysts and frisks, the policeman patting us to absolution just because, how we walked into a room like a dancer hitting his mark, all the small caliber woes, macho scenes played out to pure spaghetti, tequila, cigarillos, a rebel in a bandolier, your Casablanca hourglass, a heart-shaped pool where her heart should be, and mine. I keep falling asleep, wake to the typical dark of studios, more now in the flailing gloom of Heligoland, a morbid barge full of earth, a morbid barge containing all the plot twists of insomnia, the old world courtesy of a gaping wound. I am tired of my body, of the starlet's allegorical charms, of her tedious, petulant smouldering. Autumn unfolds, is mellowly wrested from vegetable loins, arrives in strips like dank celluloid, our cardinal squib, our meanest movie. His dream. Of course I'm awake, still turning up the collar of my John Doe coat and contemplating, a kind of idle dread and aggravated fracture, midnight's cynical licorice air's apathetic threat. Dreams I could do without, molten seethe of salted faults, something beetling in me. The pitching hour, left hands tying little knots in memory, hitch and splice and cinch and braid the ligature, the shackled dull blade suddenly scimitar. A boning knife in the brain's dark paunch. These are earthworks, were his eyes. Men who loosen their belts for butchery, men whose pedant hieroglyphs are wounds and wounds and wounds. I have torn my temperate thumbs holding my own eyelids down, but of course I'm still awake. Something to do with the birds, full of throat and faint of heart, or caught in a cracked door's vectoring regard, sized up and minutely loathed against the light. A wingspan as a red hand, as a man's hand steeped in the reeking clothes of its kill. I talk to myself and to bad dreams, institutions and to bleak schemes of snow. Father, standing in the red lozenge of a November shed, his arms full of leaves and weeping, young boys stricken or venturing through rain and its bafflements, towns made miserable with victory, towns that say après-moi la deluge in distillery tones. Nights I'll feel my exile coarsen into banishment. night is wearing its shirt transparent at the breast where the heart bleeds through. I have not slept since England. Last week on the lock it was Christ and his gravedigger's duds. As the water soaked up his shovel he swore he made a bed for me in paradise. I could drown, hugging all these homesick trinkets in my hands, my pockets gorged on hobnail votives, residues and rumours, places, parents, friends. He was barely there. His body a smudge on a logbook page, his wiry latitudes worked out wrong. He should not be here. A growl at the back of a dog without the dog. How he should not be here, be here, be here. Till sun sent tendons of light to hold the red room up. And his dream became my dream. Of course I hadn't slept. Turn the combination lock, sibilant and fidgeting. Quarry, penetrated clay, corrugated gardens. The sky arrives on fire again. To wake his dream, to dance his wake. Boon companion. That I have my honeycomb strongholds too, impossible penetralia. Shall I compare you to a milky stoat, my mucus suitor, sifting near the heart, hair weight weaved in the throat? Shall I compare you to a badger's bone erection, thin migratory needles slivering in me? All disfigured favour now, Gallicrow for fallow fields, flailed lapels of fiction of thread. Autumn is a spectrum of disquiet, a finite infamy pin in the bubo, the blister on a lip. You are a straw plateau made meal, the apple's malic sting, rodent declensions softly. Winter's stinging appetites are on their way. And the mirror is your grail and your bruise, and the sun sinks its teeth into a broken leg. The plough's malefic, crock and tuber, seam and sherd and reliquary yield, all dead things turned up, us too. You've the grinning sickness now. Make dirty talk like a smirking toy, senescent spectre of the laurels. Farmyard dark of treadles and of cleavers crack like a greased teat in the cold. Show me a midden and I will skim you the world from its watery depths. Who are you to talk of love, who fucked the susceptible chestnuts into blight? Kingdom of wimping benevolence, you cut up my clothes with lambing 6-week shears too late. A V of geese slain in flight. The geese I lay, geist you roused to charm school in a pesty dream. But I'll have my honeycomb strongholds too. My castle keeps my ridding mane, keep your pastoral appeasements. Spring runs cold my chilling vein. Wednesdays. Oh, and this nail-biter's moon, cider light of the tempest, racists, horrible whinging punchlines, Lawrence Fox. These days of flood, thinking how I watched your photos darken into Emerson's, foreboding a tea-leaf face I'd never learned to read, and thinking how the mind is a sleeve sucked for comfort, or sometimes the mind is a race of stark tigers. I liked you best when full of etch and headbang, priming a wiling mouth with the floss of all sweet stuffing. At Gasper's Hill, the moment murky and paused, about to spill. Gossip. We'd talk of many things, the pettying caresses of the young, those dreadful frosted numbers, expectancies, our famous death.